That's why you can't hear me because I had my thing on mute because I was in someone else's Zoom room. What I was saying was, you think by the fourth time Tesfa and I would have this down. He opens the room, makes me the host, and all that stuff, and we're still working it out there. If we stay at this range, I could use my Zoom room. We just didn't want to leave anyone out because I have a capacity. So good morning to you all. Thanks for being with us. We're glad to see everyone, and even Bruce Becker's in the house today. Hey, Bruce. Yeah, it's great. We have to be careful what we say now. The executives are in the room.
It's about time.
No, 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 no. We'll have a good time today, and it is still what I'm learning to say. Many of you may have adopted this language already, but I used to always say creating a safe space, and I'm beginning to challenge that with the language of a brave space, right? Where we can really be comfortable and be vulnerable, knowing that we're never really totally safe. I believe words matter, so I'm always challenging the words that I use. Uh, I like to start with a song while folks are still coming in the room. And if you were a part of the Chorus America conference or you watched our Father's Day sing along, I apologize because you may have heard this song a couple of times. And if you know Justice Choir's songbook, you know this song. But it is such a great theme here and a message here, the words, and then I think the tune supports it so well. So it just goes like this. I'm just going to pick a key and we'll go for it. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world, and change will come to you. So I want to invite you where you are. Just make sure you're muted so we don't have to deal with the latency. And just give yourself a little body percussion on the offbeat. Pop, bop, and sing with me now. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world, and change will come to you. Second verse. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world, and change will come to you. Third verse. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world, and change will come to you. I just think that's a great way to kick us off. That's why we're all here today, right? Because we do believe that what we do changes the world. And I want to encourage each of us to put our voices out there. That's going to be the theme for the first part of our meeting, is not being afraid to use our voices. You know that I'm from Georgia, and we do things a little differently down there. We're not afraid to use our voices and to speak up and speak out. And here in Minnesota, you all have great ideas, and sometimes you keep them close to the vest. So we hope by the end of today, everyone feels empowered and encouraged to be able to speak things into action and talk to people to advocate for what we want to see happening in the world. So with that, we are going to jump in. I'll give you the framework for the day. We have three parts. We have a section around some advocacy, where we're going to share some information with you and some updates with you and some ideas and potential tangible strategies with you that everyone could implement, building on what our friend Kristen Chase shared with us a couple of weeks ago so eloquently. And then Tesfa is going to walk us through kind of a real surface level walkthrough of the ACDA report with the scenarios that was released, the 110-page document that talks about each of our situations. And he will especially take us through the resources there in the Appendix A, which are of use to all of us, very helpful for all of us as we begin to think about how we are going to engage this coming year. Then we'll move to an extended time of just talking in groups and giving a chance to, we have 2 questions for you, and I'll save the questions until we move to those rooms just before we move so they're fresh in your minds to guide your conversation. And then we'll come back and spend some time together from there. So let's begin first with sharing. And Wendy, do you mind if I call on you first? Because I have your statement right here handy. Wendy Barden, as we all know, is one of our team leaders here with the Roundtable, and she's at the Perpich Center for the Arts. And Wendy has been working closely with the Department of Education on stuff that's coming out soon. And Wendy has a beautiful statement that I would like for her to share with us. So Wendy, I'll turn it over to you.
There we go. We're trying to influence things at the Minnesota Department of Education, and sometimes that doesn't happen the same way that we wish it would, but we still keep trying, don't we? So there is a statement that we've seen about arts being essential, and I wanted to make this statement more specific to Minnesota. So you'll see as we think about that arts is essential statement, you'll see very much some snippets of that through this. The arts are a required content area for students in Minnesota. It remains critically important to support standards-based learning for all students in all core content areas, including the arts. Additionally, the arts, and specifically music, can be a vehicle for social emotional learning and the catalyst for bringing people together in community, 2 aspects that are especially important during the pandemic. In the coming months, the what of music education should not change. Only the how of music making may be different. Music teaching and learning can be modified for face-to-face, hybrid, or distance learning scenarios in ways to best meet everyone's health, emotional, and academic needs. Music programs across the state should be staffed to maintain the integrity of the program and to support growth. Once there is a significant interruption or attrition in a band, choir, orchestra program, which we know is possible in the hybrid or distance learning scenarios, the music making experiences of all have been changed for years to come.
Thank you very much, Wendy, for sharing that with us. I'm going to now pull up the arts is essential statement that Wendy referred to, and hopefully most of you have seen this. This was a document that was put forth and signed by almost all of our major organizations, music organizations in the country. And here it is. I happened to pull it from NAFME here, which I have, that's just a coincidence today, because if you're like me, NAFME's not at the top of my list of people I'm happy with right now at this moment. More on that later if you don't know why I say that. So arts is essential. This is the statement that was endorsed by everyone from ACDA National to NAFME to ASTA to Howell Leonard and our music publishers. You can read the details. We will put all of this to you in our follow-up material so that you can have your own copy of this PDF. But the blue boxes are the most important things about how the arts, and as Wendy did, let's broaden it out. Arts education, arts participation, for those of us who aren't in public schools, supports the social and emotional well-being of students, whether distance or in person. Arts education and participation nurtures the creation of welcoming environments where people can express themselves in safe and positive ways. And arts education and participation is part of a well-rounded development for persons as understood by and supported by federal and state policymakers. So whether you are in K through 12 university level or in a worship setting or community context, I think taking time to dig deeper into this statement, reading it carefully, highlighting some of the important things they emphasize here, team building, self-reflection, certified arts educators and teaching artists and community arts, all of these connectors and languages that we can use as we talk about the role that we play as educators. Because in a moment, I'm going to challenge each of you to kind of rethink about and reframe what being choir is during this time of pandemic. I think we can broaden our perspective of what being choir is. So Stephanie Trump is president-elect for ACDA Minnesota and has really been doing great work along with Kristen Chase, who's been a part of this journey as well, I believe, with MDE as a representative. And there's been a little kerfuffle, let's say, with the MDH, the Department of Health, with a statement that some of you may have seen released recently. And I'd like for Stephanie to kind of talk us through what happened and where we are in addressing that. So, Stephanie?
Thanks, Philip. I'm going to defer right now to Kristen, who got involved in this process long before I did, and then I'll catch you up on maybe the kerfuffle part.
Yeah, so we got involved with the MDE because it's just really important that music teachers have a seat at the table for deciding on these guidelines for the fall. So we got involved a few weeks ago and have been working with the arts specialist at MDE for, working on the music guidelines for the fall. It's the same three scenarios that we've been seeing, but there are guidelines that are specific to music. Wendy Barden has also been a big part of that, I understand, and her statement is in there and it's really, really well written.
Mm-hmm.
But MMEA has an advocacy task force, so we've had a few people from that team working on those guidelines. And then Stephanie Trump has been a huge, huge help and a huge piece of that for the choral community as well. Those guidelines, we don't have an update on when those will be released. Our contact at MDE, Alina, who we've been working with, she didn't know they weren't going to be released last week when the other things were released. So as far as I know, the guidelines that we wrote are currently at the Department of Health being vetted and just looking through the safety things in there. And we'll make sure everyone knows when they're live. And yeah.
And then I'll just update on my entry point with this and working with Kristen, who, by the way, is a marvelous advocacy language guru and directional guru. So it's really been a really great gift and opportunity for ACDA to work hand in hand with MMEA in this regard, and to work with Purpich through Wendy's Always Wise Words and Counsel. And when I first saw that document that Kristen was working on and invited me to become a part of, I was so inspired by the first 2 pages, which are largely Wendy's writing, some of which she just shared with you. It was so motivating to become a part of a team where our work is such a priority. And what's been interesting is that in the kerfuffle, we've had validation of that entire statement and the entire document from the Commissioner Ricker of the Department of Education, who very much supports arts education and sees the struggles in music. So the kerfuffle started, lots of you know, last Thursday was supposed to be a governor's press conference, ended up being a lot more of just commissioners speak around the table a little bit about updates, which was fine. And at that point, what was released that day through the Department of Education and the Department of Health were the education guidelines that administrators had been kind of waiting for, and like really waiting for, because they've been told about these 3 scenarios, but they really needed Department of Health and Education guidelines to be able to begin their planning outside of their own thoughts. So these documents, we knew once they were released would be perused immediately by administrators, and went to the Department of Health guideline rather immediately after it came out and read through it. And right on page 6, there were some really there was a left angle, I think, if you've read it, that was really inconsistent with the potential or the possibility and the determination maybe and the outcome of that document, where they slid into a specific curricular area, and that was PE, music as a whole, and choir specifically, and negated a lot of the potential and possibility by making a couple of flagrant statements, which we've come also to understand that NAFME has done for choral music. So we knew that choir was kind of in a more precarious place maybe than band and orchestra. We've known this for a while. And so ACDA to stand up at the national level and at the state level is right, to really have a vested interest in language that's being shared. So last Thursday night, in debating kind of how to proceed, Kristen and I spent a lot of time talking about who we go to and how this works. And I just flat out called my senator, who's also a dear family friend, and he just made things happen really fast. So by Friday morning at 7 o'clock, I had an email from Commissioner Ricker wanting to have a conversation about my concerns, which I voiced via email, and then things just started to roll. By the end of the day on Friday, we had climbed the ladder at the Department of Health, and then, we had a weekend, which was great. And then on Monday, things started again. And since then, we've heard from Susan Clammer, who's the epidemiologist and school specialist with the Department of Health, who is on the writing committee for that document that we've all seen through the Department of Health. And she has spoken with both, I've spoken with her, and Kristen has spoken with her on 2 separate occasions, and she has come to understand what the document says and the kind of trajectory that it's created. So those 2 people, she doesn't have universal control over the committee work because it was a committee document, but she's bringing back to the committee the concerns that have erupted over the couple of statements that have been made. And they have, as a part of their solution, they are looking for ways to help superintendents understand that document and kind of take those little statements away, minimize the damage of those potential statements, which I think Kristen and I have gotten them to very, very much understand the potential damage there. They are meeting today with all of the superintendents around the state and all other school leaders, as they do routinely. And this is a topic of conversation where Susan Clammer is joining the meeting to discuss the Department of Health statement about this. And we await, Kristen and I, word from either the Commissioner of Education or from Susan Clammer about how that meeting went and kind of what the direction is now. And they do have, the Commissioner has some additional ideas of ways that we can help to mitigate damage. So we felt like we climbed to the top of the ladder in Minnesota about that issue. We still await, as Kristen mentioned, the document that's to come with details, which can be under edit and can go to committee and can change form regardless of the time and effort that Kristen started and Wendy started and I poked into in advocacy for what we do specifically. So it still could come out that that document has some mighty big flaws in it. So once it comes out, we will let everybody know as everything is changing, but everybody give it a read and then certainly be in touch with one of the 3 of us if you see anything in there that you have concerns about rather immediately. I'm gonna guess we're gonna be there too, and we will find those, but that's the update so far. So we've made some good headway, and we've been strong advocates, and we need that at this time, I think, to do some screaming and yelling. And I know that MMEA is also going after the NAFME statement in crafting some kind of documentation. Maybe you've seen the Texas pushback to the NAFME statement. They crafted a beautiful document and a really aggressive statement about that. And it doesn't negate the whole of the document, but choir essentially was written off and omitted from planning, other than a couple of like throwouts of the word choir. So that's what I know.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And yes, David, I see you're asking about the NAFME statement, and we will make sure you can see that too. I can't access it right this second, but I'm sure someone will send it to me. And then we'll send it on to everyone else to see as well. And we can also help you see the TCDA statement as well. I know that was being floated around on Facebook. So one of my cohorts will pull that up, and they really did do a great job of kind of defending us and getting us going there. If you want to put it in the chat, anyone who finds it, you can put a link in the chat and people can grab it from there, and then we'll put it out in our follow-up materials to the meeting also. So, yep, see, Kristen's already on it. I knew it would happen. Teamwork. So what we wanted to do, now that you've heard from folks who are really on the front lines, advocating for us, and we did this, Kristen shared with us 2 weeks ago, some very tangible thoughts, and she shared along with her co-advocacy chair for MMEA, tangible ways for us to be involved. We wanted to come back and hit this again in a different way, with something to just help you see and prepare each of us for how, again, we can each be advocates. So I put together a little PowerPoint for us to just go through. It's not going to take us long, but I think what I kept getting hit over the head with by my peers, and I agree, is just what's tangible. What can we share that's really tangible and easy and compelling so that everyone feels like I have agency to act. So hence, be the change you want to see in the world. Speak out, Minnesota. Okay, that's the theme. Some reminders of how we can each be advocates here, step by step, how we can advocate step by step. So I've got 5 steps for you to walk you through. First step is we need to read and remain up to date with everything that's coming out. And so that's part of the reason for this roundtable, is to help you find and easily access this information. And I know our planning team is working on deciding, is it going to be a Google folder that we're going to put everything in that you all have access to? We're going to know by the end of this week where that's going to be, and we'll be able to say, go here for everything we've already shared and other things that we've vetted that you should read. So stay up to date, especially on the information now coming from our local, our national, and our statewide organizations. That's the key thing, because we want to see where they are and how we can align with the information they're sharing, and then where there's challenges so that we don't pass that information along and we push back in the right ways. Step 2, and this is the important one I want you all to practice right now. Exhale, inhale, and then exhale again. If you're like me, it seems silly, but we need to do that a lot, because I read stuff and I get hot, and we got to take time and pause and reflect, breathe a little more, and then decide on what to do with that information and process that information. Okay, I just want to keep saying, repeat that step over and over. Step 3 is where it gets real and where you really enter the process. Now you've got to decide and personalize what information is worth sharing. And once you've decided what you want to share, develop a message that represents your situation specifically. You know your situation, your environment better than anyone else. So take that information and craft the message that you can share with the right people. And I'll show you an example in a little bit here. And then the third part of personalizing is invite yourself to the table. And this is what I'm talking about with our Minnesota spirit. We don't often want to invite ourselves to the table, but if you don't invite yourself, you won't have a place at that table. So you've got to ask to be part of the decision-making process wherever you are. First-year teachers out there, 30-year teachers out there. You all have something to share about the arts and how we can reopen and re-engage as the arts. So make sure you've asked. And if there's another person in your department that already has a place at the table, coordinate with them to make sure you're on the same page and you have the same message that you're conveying there. Step 4, now we actually get to the sharing and determine what's the best way to share the message. Is it email? Is it a good old-fashioned letter? Probably not. Time sensitive. Is it a phone call? Is it a Zoom meeting or a go-to meeting or a face-to-face meeting with masks on? Wear your masks, people. Decide which ways you're going to share it. And then the next part, and this comes because of our conversation yesterday with Roundtable Leadership, determine who the message should come from. Is it coming from you? Or do you know that when you say things to your administrators, they immediately tune you out or they go in the other direction? So perhaps, and I've learned this from church work, whenever I want to get something done in the church, I say something at first and then I get other people to speak for me. So your supporters, your participants in the program, peers in the school, peer teachers who see the value in your program, who needs to share this message that's directed about your program, about the arts, about choral arts in particular. And then step 5, follow up. After a few days, check in if you haven't received a response. And then we can always return to step 1 as necessary. So I just drafted a little kind of sample letter. It's not real, although the names are real, but it's not a real situation here. So just to give you an idea what I'm saying, open, keep it light. I trust it all is well with you. Hope you're having great family time. Great. Now let's jump in. I want to follow up on the conversation. You know that I've been optimistic about this. I've attached this document. It doesn't have to be that many pages, but I've attached something specifically that was just released by an organization, someone that has clout, credibility in the minds of the people who are going to see it, and then tie it back into you, which affirms many of my thoughts. Here's the action. I'd love to set up a time to meet with you and the facilities team in this case, so we can walk through the building and discuss a framework. And then a closing. While we cannot return to what we once knew, I know we can do something that provides us an opportunity to return to meaningful musical experiences. And then, you know, the closing out there. I look forward to being in touch. So I just think it's helpful for you to see something there. You all can do this, customize it for you. I encourage each of you to do this. Wherever you are, whatever your situation, so that you are on the ground floor of the decision-making process as we move forward here. In the words of my mentor, Philip Brunel, he says you have a 50-50 chance when you ask. They will either say yes, and you'll get what you asked for, or they'll say no, and you brush it off and you find another question to ask. My adaptation of that is if you don't know, if you don't ask, you just don't know the response you're going to get if you don't put something out there. So I encourage you to put something out there. If you have any thoughts or questions about this or anything else that we've shared, now's the time that you can ask that either in the chat or unmute yourself. We can address this before we move to TESFA. I'm scrolling through the screens. I see people looking attentively. Everybody's okay. You all look good. Nice smiling faces. Thanks for the smiles. Okay, great. We will move on. So TESFA, do you need to share? Do you want to be able to share the document while you're talking through it some?
It will be amazing. I mean, you now have the host capabilities, so I can't share on my end.
I know, so I can give it back to you. And then what we're going to do, I started creating the breakout rooms with those who I know where you're going to go. It's going to be faster for me to call out everybody's name and then put you in rooms that way than trying to do it on my own like last week. So what we'll do is I'll give you the host back, or
Okay.
you can reclaim the host, then you can share, and then you'll give it back to me.
Yep.
Boom.
Yay. So, hey, everybody, I'm going to share with you the table of contents page from the National ACDA document. Just if you haven't had a chance to read it, no problem. It's 108 pages. That's a lot of reading. Cool. So if I were to give you the Cliff Notes version, the Cliff Notes version is to read every scenario, even if you are not teaching in that scenario. The idea, the way that it was constructed is that you will be able to piece together very specific ideas and game plans from a scenario that might not be yours that is applicable for your very specific teaching environment. So like if you're teaching in senior high school, you should definitely read the community youth, or you should read the middle school, junior high school scenario as well. So I would not tell you to just skip to those pages. I would say read the entire document. But for now, something that Philip was just hitting on is the advocacy statement. It's like using the advocacy statement. If they're looking for something specific from a national organization, I'm going to show you that advocacy statement. Hopefully you can see it right now. Take a few seconds to just skim it. And the other thing I would point you to is also the conclusion statement, and we won't go through that right now. But one of the gifts of this document is the Appendix A. What's awesome is that we've gotten so much feedback at the national level from people who said, hey, I got 2 days from my administrator to send students home with a packet and not expect them to do distance learning through digital means. And that's a real reality that teachers face across this country. And so just to show you specifically, there is a living document here, and it's buried, and I wish, we had a better way to show you, but it's under pedagogy resources, and it says instructional guide for teachers who have students with no internet access and limited learning technology. And I don't know if you can still see, but I'm going to now reshare that page as well, so you can see exactly what it looks like in Chrome. All right. And it breaks it down. Like, let's say you were looking to get students, let's say students have a laptop, but they don't have internet access. Well, one of the guides basically says you can get them a $3 flash drive. You can load all of your lessons on that flash drive beforehand. You can basically record the lessons a little bit beforehand and give that information to them and figure out a way to create an exchange. So every one of these scenarios is broken down for you to figure out, okay, that specifically won't work, but if I adapt it to my needs, this will be an easy solution to provide for our students. So just be aware that Appendix A is something that's really awesome. And something else that Dr. Bowers, Judy Bowers, if you didn't get a chance to see the sermon, she delivered a spirit-filled sermon on Monday as she was talking about the document. And I want to share her appendix with you. This is Appendix B, Establishing Instructional Models. So if you've ever taken a class with Judy Bowers, here we go, you would know she is like a, how can I say, she's a once-in-a-lifetime educator. She is truly incredible. And so she goes through and says, here we go. Repertoire hierarchy for independent singing. These are all things that we can use even at the high school level and at the elementary level, thinking about now adapting obviously for your specific environment. But when you look at these, you're like, oh yeah, if technology is an issue and things that we can do with Zoom and still use technology, this is some way that we can do. Teaching for transfer, the rule of consonant releases. All of these rules that you can ingrain into your students as they are basically working, and you're not necessarily focusing on, this is my polished product. This is all process work. This is all process focused. So thinking about ways to use what Dr. Bowers has included in these instructional models. And there's another really amazing gem that I'm going to show you. This is Derek Fox's, and I know that Philip is going to bring Derek in, so I'm going to show you this appendix, and so you can see Derek Fox's, here it is, this professional choral resources. Now I got to stop this and show you another share so you can see. All right, Chrome. So Derek Fox has basically already curated tons of drives. So let's say you teach high school. All of these are basically different lessons that work for your very specific environment. So you can take any of these lessons and say, oh, that works. Look at this. Look at this. I mean, there are so many. Let's say you want to go back and you want to look for church and community. And you see that all of this work has been done for you. So you can start dreaming now, planning for the fall by just going to Derek Fox's Professional Choral Collective Resources and know that that's a gem in the ACDA document. And the final gem in the ACDA document that I know ties to what Philip is planning on bringing to the table is Core Amore. And just to give you some information, let's say you are looking to create, if we are creating music in a remote environment, Core Amore will help you and give you tutorial opportunities to work on that. So here is that as well. And so you can just go online, get involved. You can see right here, get involved or contact. And they give you free training, free resources. The music is already done and the actual rehearsal tracks that you would use inside of one of your digital audio workstations. like if you're using GarageBand or any one of those things. Now, obviously, this is something that you would plan over the summer, but what's cool is that he's looking to create a database and has created a database where teachers can pull directly from this and say, this is public domain. I don't have to pay for music. I also have the tracks done for me. And there are other adult voices that are singing that can serve as a vocal model. So, because one of the things that teachers that we've heard, that teachers are not okay with necessarily the auto-tune vocal models from some of the practice track companies out there, especially delivering soprano and alto modeling. And I get that. And so what this is a real human voice, typically college professors that you can basically reach out to directly and say, hey, would you be willing to talk to our students about this process? And every one of the people that I've talked to who's involved with Core More said, absolutely, I would love it, love it, love it. So that is the breakdown. Obviously, I do encourage you, as I said, to read all the things inside of that 110-page document, but know that there are some gems there that if you really dig, you can find some stuff that will work in your environment specifically.
Great. Thank you, Tesfa, for that overview, very comprehensive overview. So you can see you're going to want to spend some time with this document and get to know it intimately. And hopefully your mind is already starting to get excited about the possibilities. And that's really what we want today to be about, is to let you see the possibilities so that later in July, it's not July yet, but it's coming, in July, we can begin to bring in Troy Robertson, who's with Core More, the founder of Core More, Derek Fox, to dig into some of the actual hands-on practice here. So our last show and tell before we go into groups is just a surface level talking about being choir, what we can do. This was inspired by being a part of the webinar. That was the second webinar when we tried to recorrect and redirect the information that came out on May 5th, where we all went into a deep hole. And it was like, help. And so I just went on saying, sure, I'll be there. And I can't tell you the number of email responses that I've gotten from people and conversations about, can you say more about what you were trying to say? It has actually turned into what I call being choir now, an advocacy piece, because we want to prepare for singing in person. We want to prepare for maybe hybrid singing as well. We don't want to go back to completely distance learning, but we know we need to be prepared for that. And so either way, I think this gives us an opportunity, friends, to reframe what we are as choir. So here's what's at stake. If we consider these points as well as others, the fact that being choir is about addressing the social and emotional well-being of our participants. It's music, yes. It's performance, yes. It's singing in harmony, yes. But it's at the front and center is each and every person, the souls that we have the opportunity to engage with, to make sure that they are nurtured and cared for, to make sure that they feel like they belong and are included and not feeling isolated, and that they have opportunities to be creative and to express themselves. So this picture right here is part of a project that we did with the Singers of This Age called Creative Connections, which was a twist on telephone. And this one was called Being the Peace, breaking off. And the person said, I can break off from bad vibes. I can break off from hate. I can break off from all these other things and just being peace. And it led to very generative conversation around that. I'll show more about that in a moment. So here is the very surface level hierarchical approach to being choir. The first thing we have to agree to is that we show that we care. And I know that you all do this. We show up, we listen, we laugh, we are there for each other. That has to be front and center to this new approach to being choir, this pedagogical approach, if you will. That leads us to then nurturing a place where we can connect and we can create. And I'm using this language very generatively and very intentionally because this is the language that we can use with our administrators, with our pastors, with our civic leaders who are making decision about saying that choirs shouldn't happen. That's a load of CRAP. We should happen because we have a place where we can care for people, we can connect with them, and we can create with them, allowing us to create this brave or safe space where conversation happens. And boy, do we need conversation right now, right? And we can collaborate. And the conversation, the collaboration are both musical possibilities there. Musical possibilities. So just to kind of whet your appetite, I wanted to show you a few of the examples from the Creative Connections. This one, Bloom and Harmonies and Melodies, and you can see the statement that Yi, the student who created this, said. This allowed us to have conversation about what we were missing in our Zoom rehearsals, because we've been rehearsing, we're still rehearsing every Monday night, and we still sing together and we still spotlight individuals. But this allowed us to talk about what we're missing and what we're looking forward to through this creative piece here. The one on the left here, Soda created the song 2 years ago called We Are the Peace Within the Hate. And Soliana, the student, took that and said, I am the peace. I am the person at the bottom here. And here's all the things that are out there. And I am trying to make sure I filter that out to be the peace. And that allowed us to reflect on this song that we have sung over and over as we listen to recordings of it, and we miss singing it together and hearing each other's voices. But in our rehearsals, we can still talk about singing it and sing it individually and on mute. And then on the right side, showing that we can connect, the students wanted to, again, we're a community organization, right? So we're not out of school. They wanted to do something in response to George Floyd. And so after talking about it, we have now for the last 3 Saturdays in a row gone to Calvary Lutheran Church, and we have packaged food, we have delivered food to the people who come there, and then we go down to the memorial and we pay our respects and talk about it. And last week we actually sang, and you may have seen our distance setup for singing there on Facebook. I decided to share it, probably against my better judgment, but I was like, I'm going to show you that we can spread out and sing, because we can do it and be safe. So that's, like I said, just a little short whetting your appetite of, can we all reframe what being choir is? I know that we miss doing what we used to do the way we do it, but we are still meaningful. And it's up to us to accept where we are now, think about the possibilities for return, and put all of that together and tell our story so that no one can tell it for us. So with that in mind, we're going to send you to these breakout rooms to answer 2 questions, just to talk to each other about 2 questions. The first question is where are you inspired? Where do you see hope in the possibilities that you have seen today? You know, from the advocacy, from the ACDA document, from thinking about choir differently, where are you encouraged? Where are you inspired? Where do you see hope? And then the second is, what are your lingering questions? What questions still remain for you? What's not answered? And we just want you to have generative conversation in these rooms around those 2. So what I'm going to do here is to go back to my, oh no, are you serious? Because we switched, because we switched host, it totally stopped the rooms that I'd already pre-created. So it's okay. Oh, no, there they are. Okay, yeah. Sorry about this, folks. I actually work on Zoom every day, like all day long, and this is a new one for me here. So what I'm going to do is call your names and put you in one of these 5 rooms here. And that'll help me just to get it going really fast. And just hang on, I'll open the rooms at the same time. So Anne-Marie, so the rooms are elementary, middle, high school, collegiate, community, and then worship.
Either elementary, middle, or high school is fine.
Okay, great. Ben Ellison. And go ahead and say it out loud. It'll be faster for me because I'm actually looking at your names and moving you where I need to be. So Ben Ellison.
He says middle school.
Thank you. And if someone wants to read that out to me, that's cool too. That also helps. Ben Hanson.
Middle school.
Oh, that's easy. Thank you. Bruce, where do you want to go? Bruce Becker, would you like to go to community?
Worship. Did you hear
Worship.
that? Yeah.
Yes, gotcha. Worship it is. Thank you, Bruce. Catherine Rainier.
Middle school.
Middle school. Thank you. There we go. Okay, Chad Felton.
High school. High school.
Thank you. Cheryl J.
High school.
Thank you. Christina P.
Elementary.
Got it. David Minicky, you want to go to college. I know that already. Yeah. Deborah Mason.
I
lost you, Deborah.
middle
Sorry.
school.
Thank you.
Sorry, middle.
Thank you. Diane, I'm going to send you to high school. Thank you. Elizabeth Gullick, high school, right? Elizabeth, Liz?
Yeah, high
Thank
school.
you. Okay. Thank you. Hannah Trump?
Middle school.
Gotcha. Thank you. Jason Etten, high school.
Yes, thank you.
Jay Dupe, that's high school also, right? Duluth, right? Jennifer Juliand.
High school, please.
Thank you. Jody Martinson.
Worship.
Will do. John Haberman.
High school.
Thank you, John. Jonathan Copland.
Put me in worship this week, please, Philip.
Okay. And I have not opened the rooms yet in case you're wondering, so. Great. Kelly Heinoen, sorry.
Middle or high school?
You're going to middle school, if that's okay. Chris Ronstad.
Community.
Kristen, you want to go to elementary, Cavill? Kristen Kibble?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Gotcha. Karen Lucken, high school.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Marie Espilond.
Elementary, please.
You got it. Marianne Ofterhide, sending you down here to group 5 also. Great. Mary Ebanks.
High school, please.
Thank you. The high school group's big this week. This is great. Matt Kaminsky.
I was going to say high school, but I can do middle if that works better.
Okay, I'll put you in middle.
Great.
Michelle Ellers. Michelle
Elementary.
Thank you. Hope I said your name right. I apologize. Nicole, let's see, I'm put you in high school again. Patty Connors, put you in collegiate. I think what we're going to do next time is when we go to breakouts and we do, we've got a couple of ideas. We may have like a separate, just go to a separate Zoom with a different code for the breakout. Peter.
High school.
You got it. Paula Holmberg.
Let's do collegiate.
You got it. Rob Graham.
We'll do community.
Okay, because of the numbers, community and worship are going to be the same right now. It looks like it, folks, just so there's more generative conversation. Robin Lorenzen. Ron Rydell. Ryan LeBoy.
Collegiate.
Collegiate Ryan. Okay, you got it. Sarah Gilbert, I'm put you in high school.
Thank you.
Sarah Waller.
High school, please.
You got it. Sheila Schustrich.
Middle, thank you.
Okay, will do. After I do the next couple, I'm going to open the rooms now because we have enough people where we can get going conversation. And then, so I'm going to open the rooms. Those of you who are already assigned, you can already go to rooms. And then I'll keep working through the list here now to make it easier. And sorry for those of you that are still here, it's Zoom actually likes it best when you just randomly assign people, frankly. Okay, Tesfa. Collegiate, right?
Put me in worship today.
Worship today, okay. Tanya.
High school.
Stephanie, high school.
Yeah, please.
Wendy, elementary again.
Sure, yes.
Jody Martinson, you told me earlier and it didn't get in there. I'm sorry, Jody.
Worship, please.
Got it. Susie Johnson. Siri, high school, yes?
Yes, please.
Leon.
Community.
Sue Zemlin, high school.
Yes, thank you.
Therese, got you in collegiate.
Thanks, darling.
You're welcome. Robin Lorenzen.
I can be elementary, middle school, or high school, wherever you need me.
I'm gonna send you to elementary today. It's a smaller group.
Okay, sounds good.
Ron Rydell. Susie Johnson.
Community.
Got it.
Can you hear me?
I can now. Yep. Sorry, you cut off the first time, but I got you. And Sheila, I'm sorry I missed you earlier. Sheila Schustrich, it didn't take it.
Middle.
Okay, now you're in middle school. Okay. Everybody should be assigned except for Ron. I see you there, Ron. You're on mute. Let me, how you go? Can you unmute now? Push that button. I just sent you an ask. Yeah, there you are.
You got me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that would be worship.
Okay, we're going to the same place. I'll see you there. Large picture stuff that came out of your room. Anyone from the elementary room want to share any nuggets or anything that came out with the rest of us?
I can share. There was a lot of hope in that room that people shared curriculum that they've been involved in and things that they've learned. They talked about conversations with facilities departments and about understanding HVAC and those bigger pieces, barriers and such, and trying to make sure that everybody in the building and the district is really on board with helping get that sorted out as well. So we realize that we're in a different situation in the elementary room. Children are required to have music. They come in a group. It's a very different scenario. And there was a lot of hope there.
Thank you, Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone from the middle school room want to share anything?
Our spokesman ended up, his mic didn't work as well. So I'm going to kick in. It kind of went out halfway. So a lot of the conversation that we had focused on making that shift from that expectation that performance is what we do, and that's all that choir is. And as we know, with middle school and high school, and really a little bit in elementary school, that performance is what is our worth to some parents and districts. That's where we show that. But to be able to reframe that in our own minds, as well as in the minds of our communities, how to communicate that to administrators, the social emotional learning parts, making sure that we are connecting to that, and the value that music has in that aspect, especially since that's such a push in education in general right now. Still a lot of questions about the fact that different districts are going to be able to implement those 3 plans very differently, and hoping that administrators in different areas don't lump, a small district with a large district where more things can be implemented because of the unique situation. So hoping that when all is said and done, there's open communication enough that we can have a voice to have that conversation. So administrators aren't just lumping everyone together, but that we're able to be a voice and an advocate for our own programs in our own areas.
Thank you very much, Deborah. And yes, Ben was just noting, please send any notes to me and we will post them out to everyone. And we'll take it's 11:30 now, so we understand if you need to leave, we want to respect that, but I want to give the other rooms just a couple of moments to share in also. High school room, anyone want to share out from the high school room?
I took notes. I think I got some captured. Lots of hope. I go back to what Wendy said. I think we started with some really kind of excitement about collaboration and advocacy, feeling like we're supported, as many, all or most of us are the only specialists in our building, in our district. So that was really important. And then lots of concerns the more we kept talking about some really practical things. And one recent, just even in the last day or two, just the concept of separation from our instrumental colleagues, not looking at music education as a whole, but starting to really pigeonhole a little bit is a little concerning. Just the amount of work that distance learning took for teachers. This was a big conversation for us, and how to create a better balance and do it better and do it smarter. And there were some good ideas that came out of that. And then some very content specific conversations as well.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And we're tracking all of this so that as we get to August, we're going to customize, because we're going to have more information in August, right? And so our gatherings in August will be really about what we need to know based on what we've been told and what you tell us as well. The collegiate room, which I was privileged to kind of listen in on a little bit and sit in. Any one of our collegiate colleagues want to summarize a little bit what we heard there? Okay, Paul, I'm going to elect you. I think you're still there, Paula. Maybe not. Patty, will you do it for us?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'll answer. Now, I wasn't the note taker, but yes, there was, everyone shared some reasons for hope, certainly with regard to collaboration, in particular with regard to how much wonderful work has already been done, and these sharing of ideas, such as on all together on that resource in the appendix of the ACDA site, that so much of the work has been done and it's in one place, and we hope that we as individuals can find something that works for us, but we also talked about that it does need to work for us. We can't suddenly become somebody that we are not. And we need to kind of capitalize on what we do well and learn some of these new techniques and use them. There were questions about where we are, when we will know, what we can actually do, and also to be prepared to pivot at any given time. I think those were some of the main things we talked about.
You summarized it beautifully, Patty. Thank you very much. And last but not least, our music and worship / community colleagues there.
So I took notes, Philip. So I think a great appreciation for the work that went into these ACDA documents and the wonderful resources that are there. It's just an inspirational effort on the part of those who put that together. And also the hope is, I mean, Bruce Becker had a wonderful quote saying that the appreciation for moving from being in a center of darkness and uncertainty in a cloud to the hope that there is a beautiful sunset awaiting us. So that was Bruce's quote. And I think some of the lingering questions we had were, what are we going to look like on the other side of all this? How are we going to keep our singers engaged, especially our older singers who don't have easy access or understanding of technology. So those kinds of things.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that imagery, Chris. And thanks to all of you for your participation and rolling with us. So we'll take a week off. We're back to our 2 weeks now, every other week. What we'll do after this meeting is once I get all the documents, anyone who took notes, if you'd send them to me at gps.vocalessence, our team will kind of compile those. We will send out a follow-up email, which will have a link to a Google document where you can have that. And we're also going to talk about, like I said, probably a Google folder, unless we can think of a better idea, a drive where you all have access to all the resources, much like what Derek Fox's collective is. And then you can see how to link all of these things. And you already have the ACA document if you didn't find it from the email that was sent to you last night, and also the one on Monday, but we'll put that to you as well. In 2 weeks, I think what we'll do, based on what I've heard from some of you, your feedback is the advocacy piece is going to really focus more on equity. And, you know, while it's not going to be a deep dive into the racial issues that we are fighting, I think there's a time and a space for that later. I want to just deal with equity in particular, and I think the racial conversations will come up a bit. We'll have a guest presenter, and that will give us a pause from this kind of conversation. But then the subsequent meeting is when I hope to have both Derek Fox and Troy Robertson here. And the idea is that we will just divide you into 2 rooms and have them switch. So you'd spend 45 minutes or 40 minutes with one of them talking about their initiative, while the other half's talking with the other person, and then I'll just switch the presenters so that we save time, and then you get to hear the other side. And that week will be a chance to really dig into some of the technical stuff of producing performances or experiences online, and also a number of resources and lesson plans and possibilities there. So as always, if you have any thoughts, just email us and let us know. We're happy to hear from you. And thanks for spending this time. Go enjoy a beautiful summer afternoon.